Former President Donald Trump has once again ignited controversy with his pronouncements on the ongoing war in Ukraine. In recent statements, he has placed blame squarely on Ukraine for the conflict, rehashing familiar accusations of corruption and provocation. This time, he has taken aim at Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, questioning his leadership and accusing him of instigating Russia's aggression. Trump's comments, delivered against a backdrop of escalating global tensions, have sent shockwaves through the international community. They come at a time when Ukraine is locked in a desperate struggle for survival against Russian forces, relying heavily on international support, particularly from the United States. These pronouncements are not new for Trump. They echo his long-held skepticism of Ukraine and his past efforts to pressure the Ukrainian government for personal political gain. His latest accusations, however, carry a particular weight, given the ongoing conflict and the delicate balance of power on the world stage. As the world grapples with the implications of Trump's words, one thing is clear: his pronouncements have injected a dangerous dose of uncertainty into an already volatile situation. To understand the current conflict, one must delve into the complex history between Russia and Ukraine. These two nations share deep cultural and historical ties, but their relationship has long been marked by periods of tension and outright hostility. For centuries, Ukraine has found itself caught in the middle of power struggles between Russia and the West. This geographical vulnerability, coupled with its rich natural resources, has made Ukraine a strategic prize coveted by both sides. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 offered Ukraine a chance at independence, but it also sowed the seeds for future conflict. Russia, under the leadership of Vladimir Putin, has never fully accepted Ukraine's sovereignty, viewing it as an integral part of its own sphere of influence. This underlying tension erupted into open conflict in 2014, when Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula, a Ukrainian territory with a predominantly Russian-speaking population. This annexation, widely condemned by the international community, marked a turning point in relations between the two countries. In the face of Russian aggression, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has emerged as a symbol of defiance and resilience. Thrust into the role of wartime leader, he has rallied his people and galvanized international support for Ukraine's plight. Zelensky's pleas for assistance have resonated far beyond Ukraine's borders. His impassioned speeches, delivered from a besieged capital city, have highlighted the human cost of the conflict and underscored the need for a united global response. Despite facing overwhelming military odds, Zelensky has remained steadfast in his commitment to defending Ukraine's sovereignty. He has repeatedly called for an end to the violence, but he has also made it clear that Ukraine will not capitulate to Russian demands. His leadership has been tested on the battlefield and in the court of public opinion. Through it all, he has remained a powerful voice for his people, a symbol of hope in the face of unimaginable adversity. Trump's comments about Ukraine have reignited a fierce debate within the United States about its role in the conflict. His accusations have deepened the partisan divide, with Republicans and Democrats clashing over the appropriate level of support for Ukraine. Many Democrats have condemned Trump's remarks as reckless and dangerous, arguing that they undermine U.S. foreign policy and embolden Russia. They point to the bipartisan consensus in Congress on providing aid to Ukraine and maintaining sanctions on Russia as evidence of Trump's isolation on this issue. Republicans, however, are divided. Some have echoed Trump's skepticism of Ukraine, questioning the wisdom of continued U.S. involvement in the conflict. Others have distanced themselves from Trump's remarks, reiterating their support for Ukraine while criticizing the Biden administration's handling of the situation. This internal division within the Republican Party highlights the challenges facing U.S. foreign policy in a deeply polarized political climate. Trump's enduring influence within the party, coupled with his potential candidacy in the 2024 presidential election, adds a layer of complexity to the debate. His pronouncements on Ukraine have reverberated far beyond the borders of the United States. His accusations have been met with a mixture of condemnation and concern by international leaders and diplomats who view them as a dangerous escalation of rhetoric. European allies, already on edge due to the conflict on their doorstep, have expressed alarm at Trump's comments. They fear that his words could undermine NATO unity and embolden Putin, who has repeatedly sought to exploit divisions within the Western alliance. The response from other countries has been more muted, reflecting the delicate balance of power on the world stage. Some nations, wary of antagonizing either the United States or Russia, have refrained from publicly criticizing Trump's remarks. However, there is a shared sense of unease about the potential consequences of Trump's words. His pronouncements have injected an element of unpredictability into an already volatile situation, raising fears of miscalculation and escalation. Ukraine has been marked by controversy from the outset. His first impeachment in 2019 stemmed from allegations that he abused his power by pressuring Zelensky to investigate then-presidential candidate Joe Biden and his son Hunter. The impeachment inquiry, which ultimately led to Trump's acquittal by the Senate, centered on a July 2019 phone call between Trump and Zelensky. During the call, Trump appeared to leverage U.S. military aid to Ukraine in exchange for an investigation into the Bidens. This episode cast a long shadow over U.S. Ukraine relations, raising questions about Trump's motives and his willingness to use foreign policy for personal gain. It also exposed the deep partisan divisions in the United States, with Republicans largely defending Trump's actions, while Democrats condemned them. Trump's latest accusations against Ukraine, coming in the midst of a full-blown war, inevitably evoke this troubled history. They raise concerns that he may be seeking to rewrite the narrative of his first impeachment and deflect blame for the current conflict away from Russia. Section 7. The stakes are high: aid, alliances, and the future of Ukraine. The stakes in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine are incredibly high, not just for the two countries directly involved, but for the entire international order. The outcome of this war will have far-reaching consequences for global security, the future of Europe, and the balance of power between the West and Russia. Ukraine, for its part, is fighting for its very survival. The Russian invasion has resulted in a catastrophic loss of life, widespread destruction, and a humanitarian crisis of immense proportions. Millions of Ukrainians have been displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries or within Ukraine itself. The international community has responded with an unprecedented outpouring of support for Ukraine, providing billions of dollars in military and humanitarian aid. The United States, under the Biden administration, has played a leading role in this effort, supplying Ukraine with weapons, intelligence, and financial assistance. However, the war has also exposed the limits of international cooperation. The United Nations Security Council, paralyzed by Russia's veto power, has been unable to take decisive action to end the conflict. And while NATO has bolstered its military presence in Eastern Europe, it has ruled out direct military intervention in Ukraine, fearing a wider war with Russia. Section 8. The 2024 election, Trump's claims, and the future of U.S. foreign policy. Trump's pronouncements on Ukraine have injected a volatile new element into the 2024 U.S. presidential election. His accusations, if embraced by the Republican Party, could have significant implications for U.S. foreign policy, particularly regarding support for Ukraine and relations with Russia. Trump's potential candidacy looms large over the Republican primary field. His continued popularity among the Republican base gives him considerable sway within the party, and his views on Ukraine are likely to resonate with some GOP voters who are wary of U.S. involvement in foreign conflicts. If Trump were to secure the Republican nomination, his stance on Ukraine would become a central issue in the general election. His accusations against Zelensky and his questioning of U.S. support for Ukraine would stand in stark contrast to the policies of the Biden administration and the Democratic Party. This potential shift in U.S. foreign policy under a second Trump administration has alarmed many international observers. They fear that a Trump victory could embolden Putin, weaken NATO, and embolden autocratic leaders around the world. The conflict has exposed the fragility of peace, the limits of international cooperation, and the enduring threat posed by authoritarian aggression. Trump's pronouncements on Ukraine, with his accusations against Zelensky and his questioning of U.S. support for the country, have only added fuel to the fire. His words have deepened divisions within the United States and sown discord among its allies, creating uncertainty and anxiety at a time when the world can ill afford either. As the war rages on, the international community faces a stark choice: stand united in defense of democracy and the rules-based international order, or risk a future defined by conflict, instability, and the erosion of freedom. The outcome of this struggle will have profound implications for generations to come. The world is watching, and history will judge our actions in this defining moment.